Hey guys, how you doing? Today I want to talk about the best credit cards you can get in the UK if you are new to the world of credit cards. There are around about 200 different credit cards available in the market, but only a very small number will give you credit cards. If you've previously not had any form of credit, if you haven't previously used credit cards, if you've not borrowed money, if there is not much information for these lenders to make the decisions on. Now, just before we get into the credit cards themselves, what does it mean to be a beginner as far as credit cards go? Now, some people define it in different ways, but we're just going to talk about people who don't have an existing credit history, which means you haven't previously had a loan, you haven't previously had a credit card, you have very limited data on you. So you might have had a mobile phone contract, but that's about it. You maybe have an overdraft in your current account, but you don't dip into it, so that doesn't supply data very frequently. All that means is the credit card companies, when they're making an assessment about you, they don't know how likely you are to pay back. So if you're a young person who's getting your very first credit card, if you haven't really borrowed money before, this is the list of credit cards for you. So let's dive right into it. Number one, Tesco Bank Foundation Credit Card. The reason I put it up number one is for several different benefits that it has over the others. Number one, the headline interest rate is just 27.5%. That means that when you borrow money, that is the annual rate of interest you're going to be paying for purchases. That is the lowest of all the mainstream credit cards we're going to be reviewing today. And although some credit cards that we're going to cover later only offer the rate advertised, Tesco Bank is one of the majority who do give higher pricing, and that means that if you are a high risk customer and get accepted, you might not get the 27.5%, but the rate could go as far as 39.9. The credit limit is relatively standard. You can get between 250 and £1,500. Now, a word of warning, all of these credit card lenders will tell you that you can get from an amount to an amount. What they really mean is that the vast majority of people will get the lower number. So that means if you apply and get accepted, the overwhelming likelihood is that you're going to get a £250 credit limit. It doesn't mean you shouldn't, expect that there's a chance you'll get the higher amounts. But the majority of people are going to get the 250, as with all of these different types of credit cards. Some people might get somewhere in between, depending on their strategy at the time. But don't get too hopeful to be hitting the high number, and don't get disappointed if you don't get it. Now, one of the benefits of getting a Tesco card, other than the low rate, is the fact that it actually offers you a perk, which is quite rare in this segment of credit cards. And the perk is you get one club card point per £4 spent in Tesco and one per £8 spent elsewhere. Now, that might not sound like a lot. It is equivalent to about 0.25% cashback for Tesco spend and 0.125% cashback on all the other spend. But that's still more than nothing, and given the others do not offer you anything, it's still a pretty good deal. Now, one thing to note here is that when you're spending in Tesco, the minimum spend per transaction has to be £4 to qualify for any of these points. And if you're spending in other locations, it is an £8 minimum spend per transaction. And any part of the transaction after each multiple of 8 will not award you any more points. So what I mean by that is, if you go and say spend £20, you will get 2 points for the 16 and nothing for the next 4. So in real terms, that probably means that equivalent cashback drops potentially to something just below 0.1% based on normal people's spending behavior. As I said, it's still great because it is more than zero. A few things to note: the minimum payment is higher than for many of the other credit card providers. So what that means is, if you borrow money and only borrow a small amount, the minimum you'll have to pay is £25. Most of the others will set that at 5. So that means if your balance is relatively low, you might be paying quite a large proportion of it. And certainly for the majority of people who get the £250 up front, that means you will always be paying £25 a month, no matter how much you spend, as long as your balance is above 25. That's not great because it doesn't allow you to borrow over a prolonged period of time, because in 2 or 3 months you've already repaid a large proportion of your credit limit. But that's the one downside. You also need to have a £5,000 salary to apply. That's their minimum. Although most of the people have a minimum, some of them won't tell you what the minimum salary you must have is. They openly declare it, so do some of the others. Most credit cards will be credit referencing you and checking again your income and expenditure data where available anyway. So whether they state it or not, you will need a regular salary in order to be accepted. Now let's move to number 2. At number 2, we've got Aqua Advance. Now until recently, Aqua had a better credit card out there called Aqua Reward, and you may have heard some of your friends have it. It was a credit card that would give you 0.5% cash back and was targeted at people who have bad or no previous credit history. Now that is withdrawn very recently, and you now can't get it. So the next best thing is the Aqua Advance. Now this is a slightly complicated credit card, and as a result, not that many people actually have it, not that many people use it. But what it does give you is a starting credit limit of £250 and a starting interest rate of 34.9%, although again, just like with the Tesco credit card, it does go up to 59.9% for higher risk customers that still get accepted. Now what they do is every year your interest rate will drop by 5%, as long as you stay within your credit limit and make all your payments on time, which you definitely should do anyway. But what that means is in 3 years' time, that credit card can be on an interest rate of just 19.9%, which is very good for somebody who is just getting into the world of credit cards and getting their first one. And it's actually a reasonably good rate even compared to premium credit cards. One thing to make sure you're aware of is Aqua is a credit card that is operated by a company called New Day. They offer a bunch of different credit cards, and if you're going to be getting any credit card from them, this is probably the one to get. You might have heard of some of their other ones, which are Aqua, Classic. They have credit cards under Marbles, Opus, Fluid, and even the Amazon Classic credit card is all New Day. Given that typically credit card companies apply very similar, if not exactly the same criteria in order to accept people for different credit cards under different brands, and we'll see the same kind of situation with Vanquis a little bit later, you might as well apply for the best one from their range, because it is likely that if you get accepted for one, you would have been accepted for the others as well, except for companies that have very, very different kinds of credit cards like Barclaycard. So if you're going to go for one of the New Day credit cards, definitely go for that one. Number 3, Barclaycard Forward. Now this is a reasonably new credit card. Barclaycard used to have a credit card called Barclaycard Initial that was targeted at this segment, not particularly successfully, because their interest rate was lower. They couldn't accept a number of people who would be applying, and not too long ago they entered the market with this new product. It is a 34.9% APR. Unlike most of the others, they don't price you higher if you're higher risk. So if you get accepted, you will get the 34.9% APR, which is good, and seems a little bit more fair. Their credit limits start at a very low £50 and go up to £1,200. Now they're a bit unusual in that you won't have the situation where the majority of people do get the 50. The majority of people are probably going to be getting somewhere in between. But again, don't expect you to have particularly high chances of getting the upper £1,200 credit limit. It's still likely to be somewhere in the £50 to £300 region if you get accepted. Now, they offer another perk which is very similar to the Aqua Advance but slightly different, which is for the first 2 years, if you stay within your credit limit and you make all your payments on time, your interest rate will go down by 3% in the first year and 2% in the second year. Now, given that the credit card starts at 34.9%, that means you can go down by 5% and you'll end up on a 29.9% APR credit card after 2 years if everything goes well. If the interest rate is what you're going for, I would definitely see if you can get yourself the Tesco credit card, Tesco Foundation credit card first, because it's lower out of the gate. Or at the very least, go and see if you can get the Aqua Advance card on a comparison website, because although on their website it is priced at 34.9%, you might sometimes find it on Money Supermarket or Totally Money or one of the other channels priced somewhere in the below 30% territory. And that means you will start on a lower rate and still get the benefit of the 5% per year reductions, which means that at the end of the 3 years you might be having a credit card which is priced as low as 15.9% or lower if you get one of those rates. Now, moving on to number four. Number four, we have the 118 Money credit card. It is a quite interesting credit card in the fact that when it first launched, it had a very unique structure where you paid a monthly fee and there was no other charges whatsoever on the credit card. There was no fees, there was no interest, there was nothing else that you could possibly be charged. They've changed that slightly, and now the credit card has a 34.0% interest rate, an APR, and like the previously mentioned, and like the Barclaycard Forward credit card, there is no pricing up. So if you get accepted, the 34% interest rate is what you're going to get. But what they have done is they've kept some of the initial features on not charging you anything else. So this means there are no other fees of any kind. And if you're interested in what kind of fees you might be charged, there's a whole separate video where I go into the detail of every single way that a credit card company earns money from you. So go check that out. But what you'll find is that there is no cash withdrawal fee, there is no balance transfer fee, there is no money transfer fee. The card is free to use abroad. So actually, if you say are going on a holiday somewhere and you don't qualify for some of the premium credit cards, this is a great credit card to take with you when you're going traveling. Let's move on to number five. Number five is the Chrome credit card. You might not have heard of the Chrome credit card, but you might have heard of the company that operate them, which is Vanquis. Now, Vanquis are known for having a huge number of different credit cards over time. They iterate on the naming, and they've gone as far as naming their products the Black Diamond, the Granite card, and a number of other things. Today, they have the Aquis, the Vanquis Classic, the Origin, and this credit card. Now, out of those ones, you should definitely apply for the Chrome. It is the lowest interest rate out of all the cards. It is priced at 29.5% headline interest rate. The others, Aquis is 29.8%, the Vanquis Classic is 39.9%, and the Origin card is 59.9%. Now, a word of warning, just like with some of the other ones, if you are a high-risk customer and still get accepted, they might offer you the credit card at a higher interest rate of up to 59.9%. But the majority of people, 51% or more, have to get the headline price, so 29.5% is not bad. There are not many perks here. The main perk that they advertise is the fact that you will get regular credit limit increases, and they make that a very prominent feature of their marketing. You will see that you can go up to £4,000 on your credit limit. You will be able to get increases every 5 months. The truth is that most of the other people will do the same. So in particular, New Day will probably give you even more credit limit increases and potentially even more frequently. If you look at different forums, you'll definitely see evidence of that. Capital One will do the same, and Tesco Bank also are beginning to do more and more credit limit increases to their customers. So that's not necessarily something that's unique to them, but it's interesting with these types of credit cards that if you start out low on a credit limit of just 250 for the majority of these, don't get too disappointed, because in 3 to 4 months time that might easily go up to 500, 600 or more. Within a year you might be on 1,000, as much as 2,000, and it can continue climbing from there. So last but not least, we're getting to the Capital One Classic. Now, Capital One Classic is a really, really standard credit card. There are no real perks of any kind. It is a 34.9% APR, and there is no upsell on that. So if you get accepted, that is the rate you're going to get. The credit limit is from £200 to £1,500. Again, the majority of people are going to get at the lower end of the scale. Don't expect to get to the maximum. The one thing where they're a bit different to the others is the minimum payment is slightly higher. So if you get accepted, your minimum payment will be 3% of your outstanding balance plus the interest. So that means, roughly speaking, you're going to be repaying about 5% of your balance per month. So the majority of credit cards do a 1% plus interest, so that's about 2% higher if you get the Capital One Classic credit card. It doesn't have any perks, but if the others don't accept you, if you go in comparison websites and this is the only one showing, it is still worth getting. It is a great way to build your credit. It is a great credit card to growing your credit limit and growing your understanding of how credit works over time. So if you need one and that's the only one available, still go and get it. A very good first credit card for you. If you like this video, be sure to subscribe and hit the bell to make sure you get notifications about our future videos. I'm planning to get a lot of really interesting, useful material out there. If you have any questions or comments, put them below and I'll be sure to answer any queries you have, time permitting. See you guys later.